Good afternoon. Wonderful to be back again on the stage to share thoughts. Our earlier panelists, I'm sure, have made a wonderful case with which they spoke about mind along with AI. For me, AI is very interesting. The other day, me and Ishita, my daughter, we were kind of putting a tag, putting the label, and we were trying to put it as IAAI, and then we realized we together stand for AI, Anupama and Ishita. So we'll remain relevant is what we definitely felt. But beyond relevance is something which I've come to challenge all of us as an HR fraternity. Thanks to Dr. Raju Bhatia and his core team, organizing team, Asif. I think so, a very authentic platform with which we're able to share thoughts, we're able to share ideas, we're able to challenge. And why do I love when Asif says, okay, Anupama, why don't you do a session? Because it actually challenges my own boundaries to think differently. And here I am, kind of, over the last few years, the work that I've been doing in the space of pushing the HR boundaries into business. And one of the reasons moving from an HR role into a business role, finally focusing on to people strategy. And you'll say this is really confusing. But take my word, it's not confusing. It is what the future of HR is all going to be. So are you ready to listen? Wonderful. How many of you come from that age and era where, I think so, Aisha spoke about it, people coming to drop a resume at the door, at the security door, right? Raise your hands. Or it would come through a proper paper and we used to kind of sort it out. Or having training programs were 2-day training programs. I remember talking to facilitators and trainers and saying, maybe around 20 years back and telling them, I just want a mini module of 3 hours. You want to be engaged for the full day? I'm ready to engage you. Okay, I'll give you 2 batches. But how are we going to crash the course into 3 hours? That used to be the question to me. And today we are talking about micro-learning sessions, 1-minute reels. That's the entire change that has happened. Now, when this change is happening, are we all really sensitive to it? And the entire discussion that I'm going to have is centering around how our world of HR is really moving. We moved from an administrative era. It was essential when I began my career. It was personal administration. I still remember my dad telling me, do not get into HR, because for him it was personal administration. I grew up looking at a strike just across my doorstep, shooting happening, Bajaj Auto, Bajaj Tempo in the industrial belt. So we saw some firings happening, etc. So my dad said no. But then I had this mentor, N.L. Mirchandani, one of the pioneers of Crompton Greaves, who introduced HR to me. And one overnight decision, having joined from MBA Finance, I moved overnight into HR. And I would say that's one of the best decisions to happen, because I still remained a business person, but with a depth of a people orientation. And what I see in this room right now is all of us having that wonderful, wonderful aspect of people at a depth of understanding, which many of the people outside this room as business people do miss. So how do we bring this people strategy or HR at a very different level when we are posed? We have been talking about AI, technology, and all these disruptions that are happening. A lot of disruptions. What are the disruptions? Technological, we spoke about. Agentic AI, automated, self-learning systems, data decision engines. So many things that have been happening in technology. Many of us spoke on generational disruption. Gen Zs redefining our expectations. A mother of a Gen Z, I know how much I'm reverse mentored by her. We have the Gen Alpha, which is already preparing to knock at the door. And then you have the Gen Beta, born from last year, which is already native AI. In fact, day after tomorrow, I'm conducting a session for around 50 managers to help them understand how are they going to get Gen Z ready and prepare their organization for a Gen Z, welcoming the Gen Zs. It's definitely going to be an integral part of us. But why are we even talking about these things? We have moved from dashboards. You remember? Many of us which put on boards. Wonderful trainings done, 12,000 hours of training. Engagement scores 86%, and felt great sense of pride. Wow, that's so much of effort. We really delivered. But today, if we take that to the boardrooms, what will happen? And I'm talking from deep within my heart, sitting at the board seat, where many a times everybody looks at me and says, are you an HR person, or what is this language of business that you're talking? If we talk and just show these kind of boards now, we will be quietly not even understanding where we have been moved out of the entire boardroom. So these dashboards no more are relevant. They make sense to a certain extent for a movement that we have created. So from an administrative era that I'm talking about, we then moved into a very interesting era. I would have been maybe 2-3 years out of college when Dave Ulrich, father of many of us in terms of our profession as HR business partners, introduced a wonderful model. And I see many of us absolutely adopting to it, and I'm sure all of you talk about a seat at the table. Do you all look forward for the seat at the table? Do you work towards that? Raise your hands if you have a seat at the table, right? Very proud about having that seat at the table. But is that seat of the table going to remain the same way, or is it getting challenged? Are you experiencing the shift? Are you experiencing a different set of questions that are being posed to you? And what are those questions? All coming from boardrooms and management. Are we execution ready? There's no more questions saying, are roles filled? There are no more questions, what are your engagement scores? But it is, are we execution ready? What are our capability vulnerabilities? What are our leadership depth? What is the risk that we are running? If we have to deliver these business plans, how are we really ready as an organization? Is our culture ready to scale 5x? I think so the entire nature of questions has changed at the boardroom, which actually points to a very critical aspect of how as HR we are preparing ourselves not just to get a seat at the table, but when HR speaks, HR delivers, the entire enterprise value increases, or I would say jumps up, and that's the power of influence. That's the power with which HR today is not just another function. It's not just a structural element into it with one more seat at the table around the business, where business is calling the shots and we are trying to align with them. Take my word, I'm working with a lot of founders of small and medium enterprises. Speak the business language, be with the business language, understand the models, and they understand what you're saying, ensure that they're incorporating those business models and driving the growth story. So what I'm bringing to the table is the entire needle is moving from business partnering to the next stage. So from an HR 1.0 to a 3.0 of business partnering, we are moving to what I would call is business astuteness of HR, the 5.0. Are you all ready for 5.0? The business astuteness? Or you're kind of wanting to know what it will mean when we talk about a business astuteness? How many of you feel that you already are there designing the organizational architecture to deliver the business plans? Can I see a show of hands? And that's what I want to introduce to all of us. If we are still looking at certain processes, frameworks, and these areas, they are essential. They build the discipline, they build the foundation, and they will always remain relevant. But take my word, it is not about relevance anymore. It is about, Tarita ma'am, it's about being inevitable. It is about ensuring that HR is the CEO with a very, very clear people side to it. Thinking like the CEO, breathing like the CEO, having extreme clarity of the horizontal of the organization. So when I'm talking to a lot of HR people, I tell them, the only function that can cut across all the departments and functions and objectives is HR. We are privileged to walk into any function, anytime, understand it, and actually drive the entire transformation there. So given that background of how we become CEOs or the confidants of CEOs to ensure with that people dimension works, that's where HR becomes business, not functionally, but structurally. I'm going to leave you with a very important thought process to understand this entire shift from administrative era to a business partnership era to a business astuteness. as I would call it, as an enterprise architect. So how would you become an enterprise architect? For that, there are two shifts I would kind of like to share with you. The first shift is on the x-axis, we are looking at it from an inside out of the organization or outside in. Okay? Inside out would be more of functional, HR related processes, policies, etc. And outside in would be the market, the strategy, the risk. All these dimensions come in. On the y-axis, I'd like to present you a present focus which links the past to today, and the second focus would be your future readiness. Are you anticipating the future, and are you able to build it and incorporate it into today's actions? Okay? So what we are left with is 4 quadrants. So the first 2 quadrants, if I have to be very simple, not taking too much of your time, because all of us have gone through that journey or are working in that journey, which will remain. And a lot of automation, technology, AI is anyway enabling us to do it better, faster, efficient. So that is the inside out focus along with the present and the future, where we design the processes, policies, everything put together. And then we optimize it in the second quadrant, where all the frameworks are designed, they are governed, they are deployed. You have the talent management framework, you have the performance management framework, you're going and kind of rolling out those programs. They're all moving ahead in the right direction. And yet there's a very big perceptive gap between what you are doing as an HR function versus what business expects out of you. In very raw terms, I listen to a lot of business people saying, operation done, yet patient is dead. Okay? That's a very, very normal part that we listen to. And many times HR fraternity feels, and sadly to say, they're blind to this kind of an impact on the business side. So what? You did the performance management, so what? So that remains to be answered. And thanks to the third quadrant, after the first 2 quadrants, where we have created a foundation and we have stabilized that foundation, we have the third quadrant that comes in is the business partnering. We moved from just making it functionally to being there alongside in alignment with our businesses. We became a part of that seat at the table that I was talking about, ensuring that we are respected, we build trust, we are there to actually ensure that the present talent management frameworks are applied in the business, and we have things happening. What happens if we remain in the business partnering? And this is food for thought. If as HR business partners, we feel that, yeah, we have arrived, I think so, the future may not think we've arrived. The future is challenging us. And that future is about in the quadrant 4. The fourth quadrant talks about being outside, bringing the outside view, the market, the strategy, the risk into future readiness. The risks, everything coming and giving us in anticipation models that you will create. Remember, I'm not talking about the frameworks of HR becoming redundant. They are very much. You still can use the 9 box. You can still use your entire hiring to retiring processes. But the language in which this is getting presented is dramatically changing. You're not talking of it from the HR or the functional processes. You're not talking about efforts anymore. You're talking of it from the business impact side. Okay? And that language, when I interview a lot of HR people, and I'm leaving that thought with many of you, when I interview HR people and I'm asking them about this business impact, I still get the answers in the quadrant 1, 2, and 3. We are at the threshold. Are we at the threshold only? Or I would say we are already inside it, where we really need to move from defining and creating the blueprint for these organizational plans to be converted. We are doing it, me and my team member Sunita out over here. We are designing organizations, we are architecting, saying, okay, if you want to create a certain organizational value, what do you need to do it? And those become the blueprint with the business plans to really make them into reality. So this fourth quadrant is a very simple quadrant if we focus with 3 elements. And I call it the OMG. What's OMG? Oh my God, right? Very simple to remember for you. What is O? If you orchestrate your capability and talent to give you the business impacts, it's no more about roles, it's about understanding what are those capability gaps in the next 3 years that you're going to visualize along with the market, the industry, and the ecosystem. The risk that you will kind of run because of skill obsolescence. How's your leadership evolving? I remember having put together a 9-box chart a few years ago and then looking at it and saying, hey, what does this look like? Where's my top talent? So we were working with a client and they were very happy, 35% people in the top 3 boxes. You'll make your collars up. And believe it, when I looked at the business plans and I saw it, I said, if you're going to feel good about 35% talent and the remaining in your middle box, you're not going to deliver your business plans. You need to ensure that at least it becomes 60 to 75% in the next 3 years for you to deliver these aggressive business plans. And that's where the entire action planning changed for us when we used a certain thought process of looking at how capability and talent really are integrating with your business plans. Okay? So that's the first O. What's the second M? What would M stand for? Mitigating the enterprise risk. Are you kind of understanding where your risks are coming? The successions, you have your succession charts, but looking at it in a more wholesome manner along with your business, your competition, your market, what are you there to grab? A lot of founders that I'm working with, they say, amazing products, they have a great marketplace. So many of them say, okay, we can actually grab and grow 3 times in 2 years if I have the right organization in place, if I have the right design in place. So given that background, how are you creating this leadership depth and programs that will ensure that these risks are identified in advance, they are addressed in advance, and you are working on it very systematically as a part of the business outcome. The third one, G, generating enterprise value. And how would you generate enterprise value? Margin pressures, revenue growth, looking at the processes, people, structures, all of these things in terms of the numbers. So if there's a margin pressure, there may be some processes which are related to people or organizational processes which actually lead and give you the byproduct as finance. Okay? So this entire OMG is what's going to be the future with which we as HR people will have to talk, walk, breathe, and architect the entire enterprise value creation. Are you with me on this front of it? And what would it mean for all of us? It will mean a lot of business enterprise literacy. Knowing your business inside out, outside in, present, future, past, everything put together. A lot of studies would be required. Thankfully, we had a lot of AI with us to augment our learning. And I think so that is where the entire business astuteness of HR is going to play a very crucial role towards creating impact and not only keeping us relevant, but keeping us inevitable. So with that, friends, I leave you with the thought of not only remaining relevant, but becoming inevitable towards the organizational growth, sustainability, and scalability. Thank you so much, my friends.